Ja, het koude hit de weet dat Johan was ook toe je ke wujin gasati. Ja, Ghana. Je awa hast du kach aya ach tu asagu. Gwall at ach de shi hel wasa has gwati. Yal de kat has aya. We wasatin wasa atwune Ḳulagaaw Tlein qone yan nechich aya we Ukraine. Acho tlach tua oshku we tlashke at ya has de kade hasbu ati. Uhan aya utusaku datyach sawe gwalchakut ku'ubu. Hasakawa akawe yi ani. Has awa tawu. Tlach tua oshku yuk, tlach tua oshku yak. Chosatin wan qanins a datyu tuch watank. Kuni nachsa. Ach. Shuk gwahich. Yat atin. Chagoe atlein ku'u owe. Qanach atlein ku'u. Anushi ku'u. Achas shuwahihi. Ḳulagaaw Tlein owe. Achas shulahich. Tlach tua oshku. Ya owe chosatin wasa atwune. Ayego genk. Ya wan qanins ya kahik aya qutzati tlingitani ka. Yachtsu wan qanins khoach ach qidach. Gwall Tlein owe wudulséixin. Tlhasu tua oshku wushchuch aya chalta katwa ku'u. Chosatin we Minneapolis. Ya dua. Ya Latin X has to ani. Ya dua. Asian has to ani. Ya dua. Shukat ku'u has to ani. Ya dua. Tuchqa has to ani. Aqal has to data we chalta katat chuoya kelqa ani. Yuk awe wan qanins khan hasakawanik. Ya tlal ayach uti has to ani kachaguti. Ajoy tlal kachat usti. Chosatin wan qanins tlal has to tendatani chalta katqa ada. Ye awa adat yutukhwatankatsu. Wasa ke kwak aya tlta katakosti. Buch in aya qanachyak Sha wudeneki khasati. Yewe wutuwasa. Ajoy tlkat at ajich tuti at ya awune. At ya awune qanachwe kallatsikwa at wan qanins. Gwall at wan qanins aya akho awe ku'u. Adatyu has qawhul at qawtle at ya awune. Tlean qoa. Ye has kakosti. Ya achtuasaku qoa wutusaku da diachsawe. We at ya awune teen. Kusti. Qanachawe. Ka yuk atank kach. Ye kakastich. Ka achtuasaku uhansu. Ya qusakhan qatilla teen awe yuk agachtilla. Achtuasaku ya atshuk yuk atangi. Tlakawe achtuasakuich. Wan qanins adatu takhwatan kha. How tula.aan tinaga. Waltlaik. Waltlashayak uti adeyuk achtatani. Ye awa achtundatani ya yidat. Ya tliat getsu. Los Angeles kiechat putin. Hollywood. Holly Lou. Ye awa. Akaya ye jachwane. We podcast that. We kashuk kuka tude aya yuk akwatan. Aka awe. Achtuasaku kakukde awa. Ya ach yukatangi. Dasatat khoa. Ade awe. Hausnech ya ha yukatangi. Ya awa adatu takhwatan. Kadata tinechsa yati yachaltakat yukatank. Shukat ku'u yukatank. Ya yagi akhuni tin. Wuchin watu kha. Aka hayejene datawe yuqtan. Joel Isaac ayatisai. Dena ina yuqatangi dati jiwane. Hutsu awshayeh. Yatayach yati. Kwashki jiye yati. Yaidat. Hu owe. Awshayeh. Hastu yuqatangi. Just hukakach. Khatkanayus. Gusa yatlayeh. Owe. Du inaya kachonik gu dachsa aya yachwatlaq. Aka awe kone adat yejagachtune. Gwal naski ki. Wish kanach gachtu da at the katuhan lingit studultu a. Aka awe adat yejagachtune. Ka yat atsu. Gwal hastu ideka gachinik. Data tinach saya hayati. Gwal hatu wasagu. Yaltakat yech. Yekhakwasti hayukatangi. Ka atchakhlcha yech hayukatangi. Ltakat yech. Ltakat gao. Ye awa achtundetani. Wasa yi tuwuchqa. Ya gwalli ach ya ach kitli cha ach yadi. Hastu in kakwanik. Adach na ayu han ka I kakwashat huya. Gilchish.
Xat just nearly tliek xat buti ya sande katskota just skun yejene dat yejechwane ilisagavek skun Tlein dat stuchal tuyari that field methods class yes owa ach tuyek ilisagavek dat Schredetu. Gunaftish.
Johan Koa, Wasa. Kwashkout kerde hitway. Yir akos da soe yata. Ziakoe adatyu ʻadudli.átk. We sofa dot. Ye echt was a guisatini. Ka dulséix at. Gwallach tu was a guqo a. Wushdach aya yeka qosane te katwe yuqatang. Wil te katwe uski a we yuqatang jishagud nach tu was a guqosatini. Shukwa a yatayach. Ka a itcha dasa. Das kakwashtad.
Wadudlitsa uayaga.
Ja, segment dacht was a qulqa which itch adatyu takhwatank. Shukwa ai hisakuga.
Walla agkuninach. Selchos a kullin get inach kaan. Agkuninach ua.
Yak eh. Oh, yak eh. Gosh. Take
Ass of fire.
Take how? Adatyu takhwatan. Take kach inach. Kitsa kunchish we classifier yakwati. Yata koa. Okay, good. Gwell ʻadudli adat yedgach tune. Ja, das ʻadudli. Yata ko adat yachsa.
Sick.
Sa.
Ah.
Yidat ko. Dasa.
Repeatedly. And
Yeah, wasak akakachtunik. Ja, konachawe just kleka. We yuk atang jishagun adate jagachtune. Dasawe ka.
oh.
Okay, atachna. Jadasa.
Ik achinachaga. Push on.
Duka.
Fourth person.
Well, yata we glass teen. Someone. Period. Parenthesis. 4H. Capital S. Yeah, periods jashugu at just like wuchin. Wasa kakwashahit wait that
Echoji CL.
Kashugu or adik kashahitya kakshahitya yata. Jagugenki jakutiete ide kakwanik. Shuko aya yata kudzati. Ajoy. Well, clash kusti koa clash dasa. Okay. L. Ajoy. Classifier kudzati. D again? D plus D, comma. What's I to? Oh, don't even need the plus anymore. Siateach, D-L-I. Clash I again? Clash dasa. Clash D, clash dasa. Just yateach. Yewe kakwaak. Yeah, you did. Plus minus clash atina chatuti. That's what we saw. Clash kakinach.
And 8 ausaku.
Resting.
I do think that this is a very connected verb. I think resting is great. I think all of these things are connected based on a recording I listened to with Ken Austin. Breathing, resting, naming, and the voice and the base of the neck. I think all of those are interrelated things. And so when I put them in the dictionary now, they'll all be under verb root number 1 for the verb. Like if we go, just look at the Tlingit verb dictionary.
That's for name, isn't it?
Yeah, like achsayi. So it's also a name, like as a noun. And some people might disagree, but he was a speaker of Tlingit, and he was really connecting it, saying like the way he was taught is you start breathing, but then you breathe life into a name, because it also means life. It means so many different things, and I do think they are connected. I think it's a neat way to think about it too. So going through here, so we see rest, give rest to, call roll, call a list of names, name off one, to call on the spirit, to name something for or give it some characteristic. This one also can be famous, like there's an L classifier one. To breathe, to name. Some of these might be under seq, to regain breath, to get one's breath back. There's also a word for life, which is dulséix or ʼasséq. There's also the plural non-human things that breathe is ʼadudli.átk, and that's a word for all the animals that aren't human. So in terms of how you could categorize these, ʼadudli.átk, then within there I think you can have ʼadkatu ʼaddi, hintak ʼaddi, ʼadkaaw Tlein, and kayani. Those seem to be the four categories. Then you have ʼaquna'at, it's something else, and those are all the sort of big spiritual sort of concepts. Okay, dulséix.
So it's almost like Shinket Latin, that the underlying concept for a sound, maybe that's very helpful.
Yeah, and as I was, when I was listening to him a few summers ago in Sitka, someone had a PhD that they're working on, and they had interviewed him about stuff, and they hired me to just listen to it and write down the Tlingit, and it was really amazing. Like he was really knowledgeable. This Chukanadi. Oh, and then we've got repetitive and then thing. And for thing, like this, fourth, non-human, independent. So that's how I would sort of recommend handling the gloss, just to think about it. There are some things I've changed with the way that I gloss things these days. One is really trying to be more conscious of when the period is being used and when the hyphen, so that the hyphen should match up here. I don't think I was doing that years ago. And then also sort of what the order is for these things, like especially the classifier. So like if you had a classifier that was like, what am I going to say? Nach, sati, right? So this, if I wanted to see what the pieces are, there's na. What's this underlying next thing? It's not a first person subject.
Contraction.
It is.
Is that a hortative?
It is. So then what has to be there for the hortative?
Ah,
Mode, that is correct. And then sa and t. So here's step one, is sort of segmented. So we're going to pull it apart. Every individual thing is there. It's not really, it's not like, what do you call it? Syllable by syllable. It's thing by thing. It's just saying, let's pull these things apart, and we're going to start color coding the heck out of these things. I guess Denaina has a big sort of color coding chart that they're. So I think I'm going to still stick with tables, but the thing with the tables is a lot of it doesn't really show you like how it all fits together. So I'm going to have some color coded chapters, like the pink things, the gray things, and just sort of really focus on what they are, so we can sort of put the ʼdulséix, dulséix, couch potato. Brilliant. So now the next phase down is coding these things. And this is one that I think about all the time, because you have conjugation things and you have mode things. But I think only one of these is a mode thing. Does that make sense?
Is mode another name for aspect? Or is that different?
Well, aspect is, I think, a concept of time, and then mode is just sort of saying, we're going to change this verb to talk about what it does in terms of meaning. But they are related, so you could change a mode to talk about the aspect, which is sort of just saying the time. So I would go NA period MD. Oops, no, CN, sorry. So that's N conjugation. And I'm using abbreviations because this stuff gets so long, it gets hard to sort of do it otherwise. But then what do you think I put for this? I think I gave it to you already by my first mistake.
The hortative. So that is, I don't know.
Ka. And 2 letters, because this is the conjugation one.
HT.
Well, it's the mode, because the hortative, you're on the right track. The hortative requires the conjugation prefix and the ka mode. So then we just mark in here, and this helps us to see which one we might be looking at. Click A. Then for the classifier, since this is not plus D or plus I, so I would just put the letter S. So that's another thing that's, instead of putting minus, we'll just say, you know, it's not there. You just put, you don't have to put plus anymore. You just put the letter if it's there. And then B. Oops. When E. This is going to ruin everybody's interpretation. Wait, you're going to let it bumblebee? Let it bumblebee? Okay. Puzzle number 2.
Can I just ask you that first one? Why does ka go long? And what is it for just the top line there?
That's a great question. So there, what this would usually have is this on a noun. But if a noun ends with a vowel, you do have the option of it just kind of, it goes to a 0. So you can also have an 0, oops, 9, 0. And so there are some that do, and that's when ka goes long, is when you're attaching this. For some reason, when we put this 0 on it, it makes it go long. Because you could also say kach dulséix at, but there's a lot of times where kach just goes ka, because I think it, I don't know, I guess it works better.
Sheesh.
Can I ask you another question?
Oh,
Can you tell me what, I missed this and I wasn't thinking fast enough. What's the MD for again? It's like, I get the conjugation ga, but what's MD stand for? With the classifier S, but what's MD?
it's the mode.
I
So
thought it was mode, but I don't get it,
yeah,
sorry.
so there's these 4 things, these conjugation prefix, right? So there's 0, na, ga, and ka. And the verb will have one that's associated with the verb. It will activate during certain modes, hortative, potential, command.
Okay.
But then there's another one, which is the ka mode. And we call it mode, you know, just because it could be there in addition to these. You can have any one of these and that, but you can only have one of these as far as I know. But you can have any one of these plus that, and that's what you're going to get for a hortative. A hortative and a potential will always have the conjugation prefix and the ga. That's why you get ʼadudli.átk and ḳulagaaw. So you'll hear those, and as you start to as we start to get more familiar with them, we'll just remember that, because our next step is to be able to just look at the theme and use the verb all of these different ways. But then we're going to have to remember what ga, because if it's ga and qa, and then us, it sounds like a future a lot of times. Gachtu, right? Like you could say ʻkegachtu'át, and that could be ʻkegachtu'át. The high tone would be we're gonna go up. ʻkegachtu'át. Low tone, let's go up.
So CN is a conjugation prefix?
Yes, and it's just noting that's the na one. So if
Okay.
if there was another one, like if someone said ha and I said eat, right? There's a whole bunch of invisible things in this one. So I would say there's a 0 and a 0 and a 0 and a ha. So like here's like it's the one syllable brain bender. So you would, let me move it down to the. So if you looked at the pieces that are there, I would say it/them, period, third person, object. Then we have 0 conjugation, and then we have the classifier, which is also 0, and then we have eat. So there's, and that's just sort of like really looking under the hood of what's there, because sometimes you will oh wait, we got a couch surfer. Hold on. So surfing, I think we were going with teat. What were we saying? Teat teat, which is it's got the waves all over in there. Yeah, couch surfer. Okay. So in that case, you would sort of have that, and then sort of saying like, okay, well, here's another one. Let's do a hortative. How would I say, let's eat it? Okay, I gotta have it in there.
Start with at.
Well, no ut, because ut would just be let's eat.
Oh, okay.
So we see this 0 conjugation in the command. So we know it's 0, and we're going to be using a hortative, and we should. I think a good place to start with a hortative is saying the conjugation prefix, and then you're going to have mode, and then you're going to have. I guess we could think of this. There's no I, right? So there's no I in the classifier, and then the root. It's usually long and low, but there's some that go high and short, which I don't understand. But those things got to be in the prefix, right?
Nachtuka.
Well, so nachtu would be there if it was na, like nachtu'at, that works. But if it's 0, we can't throw the na in there. But you're right on. But what if we just took na off of there? Because if we have, let's do this. So we're just gonna gloss this. So if we do this, we have, there might be an object on there. We're not gonna worry about it right now. But this would be na. And what's that underline X thing again?
It's the G.
Yeah, so that's the qa. And so if we take that na off, that should just expand right back out to its natural form. Oops, na mode, and then well, hold on, I'm doing this. Na qa tu.
First person plural.
0. Okay, yeah. So So now we've got na conjugation, qa mode. We've got we for on P, S, and classify.
Not S.
Yeah, that's a subject.
I was thinking, not singular. Okay.
Oh.
Goodness, sheesh.
Right, here we are, deep into the code.
My goodness. You get away.
So if we gotta get that na off of there.
So
So we just drop it.
Yes, it's the zero, so it's there, but there's nothing there. It's one of those weird things, right? So what if we started with
ga.
And then when we get to, so we're gonna just sort of start here. Qa tu. But if that's tu and there's no vowel in the classifier, it will go long.
Oh,
Let's eat. Let's eat it. To say let's eat, easy switch. You go qatucha. Let's eat. Qatucha. Let's eat it. Atqatucha. Let's eat. So like this just sort of shows you just more pattern building in terms of like really seeing the theme, what we expect. But we could qatu a whole bunch of stuff now. And we could also nachtu. Nachtuche. Let's go sleep. Right? Nachtut eat. Let's throw it away. Right? And so it's a matter of sort of keep practicing building these. And then that gets us down to here, our next puzzle. This is from Anyashahash.
can we go back a little bit?
Of course.
Can we if there was no conjugation prefix, we would just not even put that in that third line. We don't like put 0 CN. You just don't put the CN in.
As far as like, so let's.
No, I'm up above, one more up, one line up. The third line, NA.CN. Yeah.
Well, if I were to gloss this,
Okay.
I would go 0, because I want to know that it's there.
Okay. That's what I'm wondering.
Yeah, so I would.
Or you know that it doesn't use a conjugation prefix for this form.
Well, it does. It's just a 0.
It's using it, but you can't see it right there.
It's not a thing. I already gave you nothing. I gave you nothing.
This is getting into metaphysics, my gosh. Okay.
Oh yeah, right. If a Tlingit uses a 0 conjugation in a verb, did they use a conjugation? Okay. Well, for the gloss, I just put it there so that I could see it. Same with like, because then you get a slippery slope. Do we not gloss the third person's subject? I just like to do it so that we could say, we got to remember that if we see a different verb and we put it into this mode, because we're just working on a verb. I was working with ʻskuyech, and we'll talk about this a little bit. How do you document a verb if it's kind of undocumented, and you've got to take it to a speaker, and the big things you've got to get. Because I think the big stuff we can cook it up. Usually, I would definitely get the command form, an imperfective and negative imperfective, a prohibitive, and I think we can do the rest. You could maybe get a hortative just to make sure there's not one of these short verb roots on there. The only other thing is if there's any reason to suspect that it might be invariable, we're to listen for the high tone, like maybe there's no low tone version. But we had one that was a lot like this. So we had the one that I didn't have is I would gloss it, or I would put the theme like this. Does anybody know what this verb is? Do we know anything about this verb? And this is also number 2. And now I could pretty confidently say it's ʼanaa act and it's transitive. And then it's for S to fell a tree. So this is, and this verb is really funny to me in English, right? They felled a tree, they're going to fell a tree, they're felling trees, right? So it doesn't, I guess the way that verb moves around is odd to me, but then there would be no way to tell if it's fall. So this is to fell a tree. I just did it right there, right? I want to say fall all the time when I say this verb. It's to chop a tree down, make it fall down. So what we had, so let me show you like the way that I do this kind of sleuthing stuff. So when I know this verb, like, and there might be some stuff I know about it, right? So here it is, ʼqeech, fell trees or to clear. So as I start getting ready to send information to a speaker, this is the process that I go through. I want to get as much stuff documented as I can and theorized, but I also don't want to predict things that I'm pretty sure I don't know how to do, because then I don't want to get the speaker to think like, oh, I don't want to say they're wrong. So there's some things I want to just sort of, it kind of depends. Like if I have no idea, I'll just say, okay, ask them how would you command someone? How would you say, do it, don't do it? And those are probably the biggest ones that I would need. Or doing it, not doing it. The rest I can construct myself. But then we'll go look up fell, and we'll go see what, so I look up fell and clear. So again, whatever has an underline, that's when you can go look up in English. So I could just remember, I'll look up fell, then I'll look up clear. And when I go to fell, it has as kenk, has as ashkicht, and then as ayayedi, kauk, has aguchaqij. So there's some information that I can sort of gather here. One is that it takes a while to sort of spot this, but that letter T at the end, that's giving you the imperfective. I can also tell that it's transitive. Like, I think they note it back there too. It says TR. So then I know there's an object and a subject. I can also gather that it's not ka, or it's not ga or qa. I can eliminate both of those. And how can I know that it's neither of those? It's not ga or qa.
Because it doesn't have a yay or a k.
Yes, it's in a future with no yay, no k. You just get the yay. You would have to have the yay if it was qa. You'd have to have the k if it was ga. So now I know it's either 0 or na. So this is how you start to cook it down, because you can figure some of this stuff out for some of the verbs on your own. And then the next thing I might do, so then here's as, tlenk, has, ashkitch. So I'll make notes of these. Then I'll go to clear and see what's there. And here it is. Yak deye ʼadudli.átk. And then was yandilqich. Only one of these gives me information. I mean, it tells you that there can be a progressive imperfective. That's nice. But a progressive imperfective doesn't really tell you that much about a verb other than you can have that. But this one does tell me something. Yak deye ʼadudli.átk. What does it tell me?
Is it 0?
It's 0 because the perfective enclosed and is short and high. So it is 0. I mean, there's three of them we saw that were short and high, but it's a variable stem. It's fine. So then I'll go and I'll look at, the next step for me is to look in Jeff's verb notes to see what he might have for it. So for this one, I didn't have it open. Hold on a second. So I'm going to go to the table of contents and go look for the underline G. And then GI. Go down, I'm looking for qich, and we've got the tree falling one. Let me zoom in. So we've got a qich to throw, and awaqich, daqich, akaqich. So this is throwing something like one at a time, animate or inanimate, living or not. And we start going through and we get some stuff like selecting someone, knocking stuff over, turning pages, and then we can go down. Now we get the L classifier, right? And I remember Kakon Ish said there's something special about qich adi, but I don't think he ever told me. He just said there was something special about it. And there's multiple ways to talk about trees that fall down. If the tree breaks, that's qich adi. And if the tree falls over and you got the roots poking way up, that's ḥaw. So those are two different ways to talk about a fallen tree. So now you get ashqich is felling them. So that's the imperfective. And then awshqich, to fell them, to clear trees. But what got me curious here is you also up here have awshqich. So this verb is complicated, I think. And here's what I predict, is that there are two versions of this. The na conjugation, which is this one, and we found that out by having a nachahash say it, because sometimes he will know, but what this question mark is, I think, is noting is he didn't know the conjugation prefix. So that's where we go and we get what a nachahash said is we'as ach nashqij. That tells you it is a na conjugation verb. So then I would expect us to be able to say nach tushaqij. Let's fell the tree. So, because if you look at the notes, you say felled it, felling them, or felled them. So now this is where we are getting confused, because you might have singular and plural subjects, but in this case you have felling a tree and felling multiple trees, or clearing an area of trees or bushes. That's 0. This one is na. I think the verb itself stays exactly the same. That's the only thing that changes, which is wild to me. But I think it's also not one we use that often.
It is pretty weird, because if that's what it is, because normally those plural and singular verbs are very different.
Yeah.
It's tone or whatever, right? Yeah.
The classifier switches, or you get some sort of prefix on there. So this is pretty unusual. Like another unusual one is the verb for dirty. You could just put an object on there or not have an object on there. The whole verb doesn't change at all. That one's another. So you get these ones that are kind of exceptions to the rules, and sometimes you end up with these puzzles. And so, but what I did then is I got, let's see if I could find it. So I went through all the notes, and I looked through all the verb dictionary, and I noticed that a lot of these qich verbs weren't sort of done yet. So like this is a verb root that I think hadn't fully been explored yet. And so what I did is I went ahead and predicted what I think they would be for imperative, and I did not have the prohibitive though. And so the prohibitive, I think, is sometimes hard to predict because it's it's either going to be an imperfective in the negative, so you'd have llll, and then you'd add ik to the end, or the underlying K. So it would either be llll ashqich chik, or it would have to change to E. Kill kit qich dik. But a lot of times these ones are it's llll plus repetitive imperfective, then the underline. So that's why a bunch of them have the CH that changes to a J, the K that changes to a G. You get some really funky things. And so it is a little funky. I got to go through our notes. I'll tell you some. Then we got into like really funny stuff today. It's fun. So we have, where did I put it? So we'll come back to our main puzzle. Oh, I think I'm all over the place with this puzzle. So this is the sample sentence and so Anya Tlahaj likes to give these in sentences. So you'll ask them for a mode. And some of them, if they've worked with linguists a lot, they'll just sort of throw them out there. But some of them, they want to put a sentence there so it makes sense in their mind. So we have Tlilt'e ye Illaqitchik. We chuk ʼanaa kawaha. I think the tse part can, I think that's optional maybe. I think it adds a little bit of different meaning to it. Because I think you could probably say, Tlil ye Illaqitchik. Illaqitchik. CH to the J is tough. And that tells you that there's a double CH on there too, which is interesting.
So don't knock it down.
What I think that does is this, right? Because it's sort of like wait, and it's like tlit'eh, or we'll see it pop up in a few different areas, but that's how I would interpret that. And so it doesn't, I don't think it needs to be there for the prohibitive, but I think in the context of this sentence, it's saying something. This one's pretty wild. Anybody know the ʼanaa? So once I heard this one, I knew this because I had encountered it. Well, I know, like putting this dictionary together, it's been like a big headache, and some people are mad at me about it. But one thing about putting this thing together, it really helps me to sort of just learn a whole bunch of this stuff, because I remember when I had to enter these, and some of them, they could mean so many different things. And yeah, it's in the way of, and I want to take a look at it because it's one of these entries that's worth sort of taking a peek at, where it's got to have a whole bunch of stuff to it. So ʼanaa comes from ʼa and nya. Like this nya is all over the place. And that nya on its own can mean in the way of, shielding, or in the area of. Kind of depends on how it's being used. That's why it's hunya, is because it's the shield from the north wind, the levee, right? So here you have in the way, keeping away, protecting, shielding, screening from, blocking. So it could mean any of those things. It's so wild to me. So here's one, ʼanaa yaqut. It's built into that phrase, which is to offend the spirit of an animal. This is the name of that bear, that woman who married a bear story. Right? And so that ʼanaa is in there. move out of their way. I think and it's interesting too, because it could be just in the way. It doesn't, there's a mouth on there, but it doesn't always mean that it's blocking specifically the mouth. And then,
That is kaya ʼadudli.átk, I think. But I'm just wondering if it's like the same thing or similar, or
yeah, I think it is. And so maybe that na part can contract. And like names tend to really smush things together, and so some things gotta go. But it could also be one of those things where it was nya can be yina or niya, so maybe sometimes it can just be ya in some cases. Or maybe it was one of those nya that changed to ya. Wow, deep dive. Sheesh. Okay. Back to our puzzle. Oh, that truck is in the way of it. Kawaha in this instance can mean to like just be located there. That's another wild verb with like a bunch of different meanings, right? Ah, kawaha, it's there. Okay. So here's another like advanced verb spotter puzzle. The master speakers give us the best brain teasers. What's your predictions here?
I don't want some of your handiwork, or no?
I don't. That part
Isn't that yay janei dach is like from your work, yeah?
Yeah, so we got that. And my work, and what about the dach part? You got the my work.
That's
From my job.
Yep.
Me.
Now we get the big juicy verb.
Me, I.
Don't fire me.
Yes. So I don't want to I don't want to get fired. Right.
Yeah.
So, but when I saw this, I knew what kind of verb that was, and I was excited. So when I said, oh, tell him this. Oops, that should be like, fix the tones. Ḳulagaaw. I could take this and go plop, change that, and put that in there. So these are the moving parts, right? So once I saw this, I knew that was the potential. Because the hortative would have na, would have qa, because I know that this verb is also nashqit. So that's the command form for throw it away, or abandon it, or divorce them. It can mean any one of those things. So in this case, but what tells me it's not a hortative? There's one thing in here.
I don't know. Can you have a hortative with fourth person like that, or?
I guess you could. like let people, you could, like let people throw it away. And I'll tell you what that would be in a second. But there's one thing in here that tells you, I think, tells you it cannot be a hortative.
Doesn't hortative have a K?
It doesn't, if it's like let me, then it usually has an underlying K.
It's plus I.
It's plus I, right? You cannot have a, as soon as I saw that plus I, like it's from Sam. He's not making, there's no mistakes there. It's for me to investigate. So I said a potential, the potential has, usually, it has the irialis. I don't see the irialis in here, but maybe it just gets absorbed. But it will have conjugation prefix qa mode, irialis, plus I. It's a wild one. But that's, and so I didn't want to get fired from my job. So that's what I said. How would you, but once you know how to do the potential, now you can throw the ʼadudli.átk around it. And the yeah.
There's no way you can get fired.
There's no way you can get fired, right? Because he's in the biggest chair of them all. Of course not. So there's your fun puzzle stuff for today. Deep dive into grammar and structure. But this stuff is fun. Like this is the stuff that I do. I get, as I go through and start sort of continuing to edit the work that's out there, just to try and sort of keep thinking about how to keep teaching to this stuff, then I get ideas. And sometimes I'll find a verb. I was like, oh, we got to get this, we got to figure out how to say this verb. Because once you get, usually if you get those forms that are hard to predict, like if you don't know the conjugation prefix, it's very, you just can't really predict how to use it. But once you know that, you can start to predict everything else. The imperfective is really tricky. The prohibitive is usually this or that. But it's kind of hard, that one's pretty hard to get. But if you find a verb that's not documented and you're sitting with the speaker, then what you do is you just try, and that if you're not sure about all the different parts that are in there, just record them. If they know how to say do it, don't do it, doing it, didn't do it, or not doing it, sorry. We could do the rest. We could do the perfective and the futures. We could do those. We could do the hortative and the potential. Once we get that, we can do those.
So what is it in there that tells us it's not plus I?
Okay, so
I want to know.
what would the hortative fourth person be? Like, let people throw it away. Or I guess let people throw me away. Okay, here, I'll get myself thrown out. I hope I don't get thrown away. Maybe I'll just keep myself out of there. Well, it's nach. This
okay.
That would be the same.
Do.
The classifier must change, though.
L-A.
Well, it's just L, because gle, when we take the I out of gle, we get that's what I would expect.
So can they, would it become, have a relative marker if it's a hortative? Would they pick up relative markers?
I don't understand when that gets on there. That's one thing I'll have to look into, or we can all look into, is some, like, let's say, like sometimes they'll say, what is it? I think I was hearing it with, oh, I'm not gonna remember it now, but sometimes, yeah, you catch an I on the end. Something I don't, or a U.
I have another question. If a verb has an imperfective and a repetitive imperfective, is there a way to know which one to use for the prohibitive?
Jeff was theorizing that there's a slight difference where one, if it grabs the negative imperfective, it's saying don't do it. And if it's grabbing the negative repetitive imperfective, it's saying don't ever do it. Or he was trying to say maybe it has something to do with time or something. I don't think so. I think it might have something to do with the type of action. And I'd probably have to go, like maybe we should just make a list of verbs. Is just start clicking through the verb database and see which ones are using a negative imperfective and which ones are using the negative, the repetitive imperfective, right? Like, for example, kuch, right? If it was, there is no imperfective of that, right? Or I guess, let me show you what let's use examples. So let's go through, and if I want to say, don't laugh, so I'll go to laugh, which is atshuk, and I'll see what it says. That is just, it's the, if we go look, ishuk, right? There is the negative imperfective. So it's going to have the second person subject on there. So a really good prediction is just to think of what the negative imperfective second person would be and put the underlying K on there. But in this case, it's got to be the UK, right? So you, because you can't say, you can't do two of those in a row. So you got to have that peg vowel in there. Don't laugh, right? And then let's go and just look at below and see what happens. Sailing around. That one I guess doesn't work. How about maybe lose? Well, this one, so now we're getting sa. So let's not worry about that one. We'll do that another day. What about sticking something to something? So here we get a so we know that, but some of them, that's repetitive. Oops, it says repetitive. That's repetitive simply by the ach. Some of them, it gets really hard to tell, right? Like, so a repetitive imperfective, like at ya uwane, shtakat at ajich to t. That's a repetitive imperfective. There's no suffix on there. Okay, we'll list out a bunch and then we'll take a look at them. I feel like we're getting into the weeds a little bit here, which is fine. Sometimes we gotta go down into the tall grass of the lake, get tangled up. Sheesh. Okay, maybe let's do some of these.
I have a question.
Ah,
On that example you just had about getting fired, can you say ʼadudli.átk or whatever it was?
well, are you trying to say?
Can you move the ʼade to just being around the verb and leave ʼadudli outside of it, whether it's in the front or the back?
You could. I think my preference would be to put it in there. Like, the same with ade, yeah. To say, like, the way they got fired. You'd say, ade du yejene yidach ʼadudli.átk, the way they got fired. And now you're talking about the way that it happened. So I think my instinct is to take all the things that directly affect the meaning of it and put them in between ade and yeah.
So is the verb to be fired include jene?
Well, I think so. You're just getting, it might sound like if I just chopped off the yejene dach, like if I just said that means people abandoned me or I got thrown out, like of the house or the village or something. I don't know. But I think it would affect the meaning if you took that yejene dach away from there. And then I guess one more thing. So this is the verb that we're looking at. So here again, we have a repetitive imperfective for that one. It might have to do with motion. I don't know. So you could say or I'd probably say don't get fired. Okay. 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 So with this verb, so back to verb construction, what do we need to know to be able to start predicting what this one will be? So in the top right, it shows you what we're looking for. And I'll tell you, when I first did this verb with Kahwanish, what he gave me was absolutely not what I was expecting. And I was like, whoa, I thought it'd be way different than that. Did you say it again? And he said it, and I said, oh, is that like herding cattle or sheep or something? And he's like, yeah. I was like, okay, no, it's a. So he was doing HERD. And so this is to hear someone's voice. So keep in mind there's a thematic prefix, sa, in there. This isn't just to hear someone walking around. It's hear them. You hear the kids talking in there. And keep in mind we're going to use them and them all. That's how we're doing the third person and third person plural. This is perfective, so we should expect object, sa, y, subject, ya, classifier, ach, short and high, because it's a zero.
Țahua'ach.
Țahua'ach. Yeah, there's all the parts in there. Țahua'ach. I heard them all. Only one thing's going to change here.
Țahua'ach.
That's I heard you all. That one's coming.
Hus.
Yeah, I heard them husses. Hassachuach. I heard you. I heard your voice.
ʼesaqhua'aq.
Yeah, Sachuach. I heard y'all.
So I heard you. How come it's not saya? Maybe I'm wrong. So saya'ak.
So because we've got the cha in there because I did it.
Yeah, I hear. Okay. Yeah.
So we're gonna have sachwa all the way down until we switch.
Okay.
When we go to we, that'll change to something different. But yeah, that's the thing we're practicing here is like this is gonna stay the same, but we're gonna change the object.
Got it.
I heard y'all. We gotta change it to ye.
Would it be ye or yeah?
Ye.
Ye.
Because always gotta be ye. Outside the verb, disconnected, its own word. Yisachwa'ach. I heard y'all.
Goodness, cheesh. Yes.
I heard someone. Yeah, Ḳulagaaw. I heard a person talking. I heard their voice. And now this one, we are following the pattern of fourth person, non-human, but that means it's actually inanimate, so it's going to switch. because you can't hear. It would just be a third person. I guess you could hear the voice of some mysterious thing, but it doesn't work, I don't think, for this. Not according to the speakers I worked with. They're like, no, you can't say ʼatsakhwa'ach. They said it doesn't make sense.
Ach, wa, ach,
Yeah, atkhwa'ach.
at, wa, ach.
I heard something. So now, because it's a mysterious sound, who knows if it has vocal cords? We heard them.
Would it be hus, ha?
It's a singular them, though.
Oh,
It's going to start with sa, but this cha now has to change to the first person plural.
Sautua'ach.
Ye'aweh sautua'ach. So this is our pattern now, sautua. That's how we heard it. We heard them all.
Has sautua'ach.
Has sautua'ach. We heard you.
Isautua'ach.
Yes, sautua'ach. Ye'aweh. We heard you all.
ye sautua'ach.
Ye'aweh. It's a good one to say at Ḳu'ig. Your in-laws are up there really
Ah,
making a dynamic, powerful speech. Ye sautua'ach.
okay.
Yell.
That's a good one.
Yep. And then they'll, well, we'll get to that next.
Someone.
We heard someone.
Ka.
We're gonna probably expect
Sautua,
Kautua'ach.
k,
kus sautua.
sautua'ach,
Oh, sautua, ach.
sautua'ach. And we heard something, and it's gonna do that same thing where the sa is gonna drop in this case.
Wa'ach.
Atutua'ach.
Atwatua'ach. Yeah, oh, why is this giving you this kind of answer? What kind of thing is this? You heard them. So now t has to change. Here's the key. If you have a thematic prefix and you have second person and you have ya as the classifier, you're going to have whatever that consonant is will be there. And then you're going to get iya, siya, kia. So that's what I would predict.
Asia, ach.
Siyaach. Right? Siyaach.
Sia, ach, ach. Yeah.
Okay, go. You heard them all.
Isiach,
What we just got to put a hus. Just put a hus on the front.
Asiach.
Yeah, away. Siya. Okay. So siya is going to be the pattern all the way down. Oh, you heard me.
Chatsia'ach.
Sheesh.
Chatsiyaach. Yeah, away. You heard us.
Hasia'ach.
Hasiyaach. You heard someone.
ʼḲulagaaw.
Same thing's gonna happen. That sa's gonna fall off. You heard something. And it's 0, so I should expect it to be iya. Yeah. Now the answer key for the second person plural perfective with a ya classifier is I'm going to expect it to go whatever the thematic prefix is, Y-E-E-Y, ye. If you are from Tlein, I would expect it to go ying with the gamma on the second part. Ḳulagaaw should be on there. So in this case, I would expect sayi or saying. You all heard them, a singular them. Root stays, the stem stays the same. Sayi.
Saying
Yeah, saying. You heard them all. Put a has on it.
Hasayach.
Yeah, appropriate that Beyonce song. If they're plural, then you got to put a has on it. Except, she would have a lot more melody. You all heard me. So that you can turn it like that story with the tree that is up there by itself because of that big tsunami. Can you hear me? Can you hear my voice? Or do you hear my voice, I guess? Not can. Y'all heard us.
Hayiach.
Ha-sa-yi-ach. Y'all heard someone.
Husayach.
Ḥu-sa-yi-ach. Yeah, well. Y'all heard something. Now the sa's got to drop.
Why does the sa have to drop?
Because if it's a thing like an ut, it doesn't have a voice. That's
Okay.
what you explain to me. Like you would just use the third person for a duck or a moose or a cow, or those sheep that you're herding. They would still just be third person.
So is that like kuyat?
Well, we're gonna change this to ut. So
Oh, that's right. That's right. Sorry.
actually, what would it be if we just chopped off the sa? We just
Yeah.
chopped it right off. Then we've got
Yat.
at ye ach. Yeah. At ye ach. So now let me tell you something about sa and cha. Those two in particular, when you have a third person subject and you have ya, you're going to get cheya and seya. So it does change from to a. That's why you say chatse wa at. That's sa, ya. When you put those together, and same with yu wa tan. Same thing going on. It's just an unusual thing, but some people theorize that say and che are their own type of prefix, but it's not. We'll see it right here. So with that, we should expect sewa right in the middle of this word. But it's also third person object, third person subject. They heard them.
Hasewa.
Well, it's just a singular, so just cut that hus off and you got it.
Oh, sewa.
Sewa, asewa, though. We got to have that because, you know, all these have a 0 in front of them for an object. I guess I kind of stopped doing this part. Oops. This must be where I left off last time I did this slideshow. Okay. So we have asewa and hus asewa. Maybe you said asewa and I didn't hear. But you got to get that on there. But it's going to go away once we switch. Okay, we're out of time, but we'll do the last two. They heard me. Chat sewa ach. They heard us. Singular they.
Hasewa
Just ha.
hasewa.
So that's the whole idea behind this exercise is we'll switch the subject once and then roll through all the objects. Switch the subject, roll through all the objects. It's a big part of pattern building is just to see what they do, especially because we went through the rules of the perfective and stuff, but it's so abstract. But once you start sort of seeing it here, you see this sai, and then you're changing ku, you know, and so it's same thing, sewa, has, khat, ha, isewa ach, yisewa ach, kusewa ach. That's it. Okay, questions? Everybody okay?
Are you going to put this on our class page or just at least as far as you've gotten? Or
Yeah.
will you wait till the end?
There will be no reveal of the future answers, but yes, I will.
Okay, gosh, geez.
And I'll do some work to sort of create the gloss column for this part. I think I kind of, it's gone through many iterations, so.
Gosh, geez.
You guys are going farther than anyone's gone before in my class,
Star Trek.
right?
Yeah, this is real helpful. Goodness, geez.
I know we did some difficult stuff, so I'll give you a real brief story. My brother and I told this story to someone over the weekend. Years ago, decades ago, my brother and I watched this documentary, and these four, I think there were four, Africa de has kuwatin. Yes, ya qaisitin gewe sha. Kesh asa ashakite would declare. Kesh asa shashakite would declare. So there's these four white guys who went to Africa, and in this documentary they said, no one's ever been to the top of this mountain. We want to be the first to go to the top. And I looked at my brother, I was like, I don't know about this. But we watched it for an hour. We watched them struggle, and had guys from Africa who were packing a lot of their stuff up there. It was dramatic and it was pretty good. And they didn't know if they're gonna make it, and then they make it. وأن كدشت أتقى الدينة وأفريقيا قوة قال تقت ويقوتان حتى وتوا art. So these guys are screaming. There's like this dramatic celebration music. They're so happy that they made it to the top of the mountain. And then the camera goes over to one of the guys from Africa, and he goes, "We come up here every summer." I just fell out of my chair because I was like, what am I watching? Anyways, I thought I'd share that experience with you folks because I don't know what it came up over the weekend for some reason. Good cheese, konachwe Johan. Klitzindain adeyejini. Good cheese.
Goodness, geez.
Goodness, geez.
Gosh, geez. Ziagin.
Yeah, again.
Geez.
Tiagen.
Geez, Tlinkotchis, Tin.
That's
Geez.
Hey, Lance, do you know anybody with the initials GJ that wrote down a lot of our language?
George Jim, maybe?
Like I'm talking about like chapters of handwritten things of our language, even down to like, I mean, I don't know if anybody, I probably shouldn't say that word right now because kids probably are an earshot of it.